My name is Evelyn Harper, and I am 32 years old. I never imagined that the day I thought would be the happiest in my life would turn into the darkest chapter of my story. It all began on a crisp Saturday morning in our family home in Charlotte, North Carolina, a house I had grown up in, the walls echoing laughter, sibling fights, and moments I thought I would never forget. That morning, I was preparing for brunch with my fiancé, Daniel Brooks, a man I had loved with every piece of my heart for over 3 years. I remember feeling a flutter of excitement as I checked my reflection in the mirror, brushing my auburn hair while imagining the life we were about to build together. Daniel was kind, charismatic, and handsome, someone I truly believed would never hurt me. But that illusion shattered the moment I saw the messages on my sister's phone. My younger sister, Madeline Harper, 18 years old, sat across the table from me, her face pale, her lips trembling, clutching her phone as if it were a lifeline. "Eve, I didn't mean for this to happen," she stammered. And that's when I saw it. Explicit messages from Daniel, planning secret meetings, talking about the baby she was now carrying. I froze. My fork fell onto the plate, clattering against the porcelain. The sound was deafening, but it could not match the roaring in my head. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook, my knees weakened, and the room spun around me as reality hit me harder than any punch could. My fiancé, my Daniel, was the father of my sister's unborn child. I wanted to scream, to run, to vanish into the walls of our house, but I couldn't. I was trapped in a nightmare that had been unfolding in secret, while I had been planning a future I thought we shared. I looked up at Madeline, tears streaming down my cheeks, demanding an explanation, needing her to tell me it wasn't true. She avoided my gaze, whispering again, "Eve, I didn't mean for this. I love you, but it just happened." My parents, who had been in the kitchen, froze. My mother's face went from confusion to disbelief, then to something I didn't recognize: protection. My father's eyes were wide with shock, but his first words weren't comfort or anger. They were directed at me. "Evelyn, calm down. We need to handle this carefully. Madeline is so young. We must think of her future first." I felt my heart shatter into fragments so small, I thought they would never be found. My world, built on love, trust, and family, crumbled in the span of seconds. I was betrayed, humiliated, and utterly alone in the room full of people I thought would have my back. My thoughts raced. How long had this been happening? How could Daniel do this to me, to us, to Madeline, who I had always protected, loved, and guided? And why was my family defending her instead of confronting the man who had destroyed everything? I couldn't hold it anymore. I ran to my room, slamming the door behind me. I pressed my back against it, slid down to the floor, and sobbed until my body shook violently. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. In those moments, the love I had poured into Daniel felt like ashes in my mouth, bitter and suffocating. I thought about every romantic dinner, every whispered "I love you," every promise he had made. Were they all lies? I felt the walls of my childhood room close in on me, suffocating me with the echoes of laughter that now felt hollow. I needed to understand how we got here. Flashbacks flooded me, childhood memories of Madeline and me. She was always the sweet, quiet one, full of curiosity but naive. At 18, she was still discovering who she was, while I had been navigating life's challenges, learning independence, and dreaming of stability. Daniel had been with me for 3 years, and in that time, I had trusted him with my deepest fears, dreams, and vulnerabilities. I never imagined he would see my sister differently, not in a way that would shatter our family, but as I pieced it together, fragments of conversations, secretive texts, and unexplained absences revealed a pattern. The betrayal wasn't sudden. It had been slowly weaving its way into our lives, unnoticed until it exploded into this reality. I remembered the night Daniel stayed late at work, but had texted Madeline a heart emoji at 11:42 p.m. I remembered her giggling secretly with him at a family dinner, brushing it off as sisterly fun. Now each memory felt like a dagger twisting in my chest. My parents had their reasons for defending her. Madeline was their youngest, the one they believed needed protection from the harsh realities of life. In their eyes, she was innocent, vulnerable, and in need of forgiveness. But what about me? I was 32, an adult, a woman who had devoted herself to a man she loved, only to watch him betray her in the most intimate way. I realized my parents had decided whose future mattered more, and it wasn't mine. The kitchen door creaked open. My mother peered in, her eyes soft but firm. "Evelyn, darling, you must understand. We're just trying to protect her. This isn't your fault." I shook my head, rage bubbling beneath the surface. Not my fault? Not my fault that the man I love is betraying me? That my sister, my own sister, is carrying his child? My voice cracked, but I continued, tears streaming freely. How can you defend her over me, over the life we were supposed to have? She sighed, placing a tentative hand on my shoulder. "Eve, you're strong. You'll get through this. But she's young. We can't let her ruin her life over a mistake. Daniel, we'll handle Daniel later." I pulled away sharply, anger and hurt intertwining. Later? How could they delay confronting him? How could they even think of prioritizing her life over mine? I felt a suffocating loneliness, an emotional void that nothing could fill. In that moment, I realized I'd been invisible in my family's eyes. My pain, my heartbreak, my betrayal, they didn't matter as much as shielding Madeline. The next hours passed in a blur. I barely ate, barely spoke, barely moved. Daniel came to my room, his face pale, guilt etched across his features. "Eve, please, let me explain." He reached for my hand. I recoiled. The touch sent shivers of disgust through me. "Explain? You've been lying, cheating, betraying me, and now you want to explain?" His voice shook, pleading. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I love you. I never meant—" "Stop," I whispered harshly, cutting him off. "I don't want to hear anything from you. You've destroyed everything, and I won't let this go on." He sank to the floor beside me, desperation in his eyes. "Please, give me a chance." I looked at him, at the man I had planned my life with, and all I saw was deception, lust, and betrayal. I realized in that instant that some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with every scenario, every potential confrontation, every possibility of how our lives could change. The love I once felt for Daniel had been replaced by a hollow ache, a longing for justice, for clarity, for someone to validate my pain. I thought about calling friends, confidants, anyone who could remind me I wasn't alone, but the shame and humiliation rooted me in silence. I was alone in my pain, navigating a labyrinth of betrayal, manipulation, and family favoritism. The next morning brought more turmoil. My father sat me down, his expression unreadable. "Evelyn, we need to make decisions carefully. Madeline is scared, confused. You must understand her perspective." I could hardly breathe. The audacity, the betrayal, the emotional manipulation, it was all too much. I realized then that the fight wasn't just against Daniel and Madeline. It was against a family that had chosen to protect one child over another, to value youth and innocence over loyalty and love. In that moment, I vowed to myself that I would not be invisible, that I would reclaim my voice, my strength, and my life, no matter the cost. But the path ahead was uncertain, tangled with deception, guilt, and family politics. I didn't know how I would navigate it, but one thing was clear. The person I trusted most had betrayed me, and now I was left to pick up the pieces. As I stared at the ceiling that night, the echoes of laughter and shared memories of my childhood felt like a cruel joke. The family I had once believed would protect me had chosen sides. I was alone in my heartbreak, but I was also determined. And then, as my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number, I froze. The message read, "You don't know the whole story. Meet me at the old park tonight. Come alone." My heart pounded in my chest. Could this be Daniel reaching out? Or someone else with more secrets? I didn't know, but I felt an irresistible pull to find out the truth. I knew that meeting this person could change everything, reveal more betrayals, or maybe finally give me the answers I so desperately needed. I stared at the message, torn between fear and curiosity, knowing that the next step could either save me or destroy me even further. My life was no longer mine. It had been hijacked by lies, betrayal, and family politics. The question now wasn't just, how do I survive this, but who can I trust when the people I love have already chosen to betray me? The next morning, I woke with a heaviness in my chest, as if the air itself carried the weight of my heartbreak. Sleep had evaded me. The messages, the betrayal, and the image of Daniel with Madeline haunted every moment. My phone lay on my nightstand, the text from the previous night glowing like a warning I couldn't ignore. "You don't know the whole story. Meet me at the old park tonight. Come alone." I stared at it for a long time, debating whether to ignore it, throw it away, or face it head-on. Fear coiled in my stomach, but beneath it, curiosity, dangerous, irresistible curiosity, whispered that this could be the key to understanding everything. I spent the day in a haze. The house felt suffocating. My parents tiptoed around me, their eyes filled with pity, their words carefully chosen. My mother would say, "We just want what's best for everyone," while my father would nod silently, as if his silence could somehow absolve the damage done. Madeline avoided me altogether, her eyes downcast whenever our paths crossed. It was as if we were living in parallel worlds. She in one where she was protected and innocent, and I in another, a world of betrayal and humiliation. I went for a walk through the streets of Charlotte, the city bustling around me, oblivious to the storm raging inside. I passed the little coffee shop where Daniel and I had spent countless mornings planning our life together. My chest tightened as I remembered his laughter, the way he'd brush a strand of hair behind my ear, promising that we were a team, that nothing could break us. But the truth now glared at me like a neon sign. The team was a lie. The partnership I had believed in was built on deception. I tried to call a friend, someone outside of the family who could understand my pain without judgment. My best friend Clara answered, and the moment she heard my voice, she knew something was wrong. "Eve, what happened?" she asked, concern lacing every word. I could barely speak. "It's Daniel, Madeline, My voice broke, tears threatening to spill again. Clara was silent for a moment, letting me collect myself. Then she said, "Meet me at the cafe near the park. I'll drive. You can't face this alone." I hesitated. Could I trust anyone now? But the need for support overpowered my fear, and I agreed. That evening, as I approached the park, the sky painted itself in bruised purples and oranges. I felt exposed, every step echoing against the hollow spaces of my fear. The park had been my refuge as a child, a place where I ran from arguments, from disappointment, from reality itself. But tonight, it felt ominous, the shadows of the trees stretching like fingers reaching for me. At the edge of the old playground, I saw him, tall, lean, his face half hidden in shadow, a hood pulled over his head. I froze. My instinct screamed to run, but something, an unexplainable pull, made me approach. "Evelyn," he said, his voice low, cautious. I recognized it immediately. Daniel's best friend, Marcus. A man I had trusted implicitly, who had always been in the background of our relationship. "Marcus, why are you here?" I asked, my voice trembling. He took a step closer, glancing around nervously. "You need to know the truth about Daniel, about Madeline. Everything your family and he have told you, it's not the full story." My stomach knotted. What could be worse than what I already knew? He pulled out his phone, showing me messages, videos, even photos I hadn't seen. Evidence of Daniel pressuring Madeline, yes, but also evidence of manipulation I hadn't expected. Messages from my mother, from my father, urging Madeline to keep things quiet, to make excuses, even suggesting she handle me emotionally so the family could avoid scandal. My hands shook as I scrolled through them, feeling the sting of betrayal deepening. It wasn't just Daniel. It wasn't just Madeline. My family, the people I had trusted most, were actively protecting the very people who had destroyed me at my expense. Why? Why would they do this? I whispered, the tears finally spilling. Marcus shook his head. "It's not just about protecting Madeline. They've always favored her. She's the youngest. They see her as fragile, innocent. You, you've always been the strong one. They expect you to handle pain, betrayal, heartbreak quietly. They don't realize how much it hurts you because they think you can bear it." Rage and hurt twisted together like a storm in my chest. "But this is my life, my heart. How can they value her over me?" Marcus put a hand on my shoulder. "Ev, I don't know if you'll believe me, but there's more. Daniel's involvement, it's deeper than just him being unfaithful. There's been manipulation, lies, even threats. He's been careful, making sure no one saw the truth until now. And your family, your parents, they've been covering it to avoid shame, to keep appearances. They didn't want you to ruin the family image." I couldn't breathe. My world was unraveling faster than I could comprehend. Every smile, every family dinner, every conversation now felt like a trap. I wanted to scream, to shake everyone until they admitted the truth, but I was exhausted, emotionally drained, and terrified of what else I might discover. Marcus continued, "I'm telling you this because I can't stand seeing you hurt like this. Daniel needs to be confronted, but you need to be careful. Your family isn't on your side. They've made their choice. But you have the power to decide what comes next." That night, I walked home alone, my mind a whirlwind. Marcus's revelations didn't just confirm my fears. They added layers I hadn't imagined. My family's favoritism, Daniel's betrayal, Madeline's manipulation, the web of lies had ensnared me completely. I locked my bedroom door and sat on the floor, staring at the ceiling. The house was silent, the shadows long and threatening. I realized then that I couldn't trust anyone, not even the people who claimed to love me. My healing, my justice, my future, I had to claim them myself.
Sleep eventually overtook me, fitful and uneasy. The next morning brought a confrontation I hadn't anticipated. Daniel showed up at the house while my parents were out, insisting on speaking with me. I let him in, my body tense, my voice controlled. "Eve, please, we can fix this. I love you," he pleaded, his eyes desperate. I looked at him, searching for the man I had once loved, but all I saw was the liar who had stolen my trust, who had destroyed my family. "Love?" I whispered, my voice cold. "Love isn't betrayal. Love isn't manipulation. Love isn't hiding the truth while you sleep with my sister. You don't get to call this love." He swallowed hard. I I made a mistake. I was confused. I never wanted to hurt you this badly." "Confused?" I snapped. "Confused? I've seen the messages, Daniel, the plans, the lies. You chose this every step of the way, and now my family is defending her. Do you even understand what you've done to me?" He shook his head, his hands trembling. I'm sorry. I can't take it back. But I love you. I want to make this right." I felt something in me shift, not softening, not forgiving, but steel forming in my heart. "No, Daniel, you will not make this right. You will not manipulate me again. You are done in my life. Do you understand?" He nodded slowly, defeated, his face pale. I had never felt more in control, even as my heart broke into pieces. Later that evening, I confronted Madeline. She avoided my gaze, tears streaming, her hands shaking. "Eve, I didn't mean for this. I love you. I really do." I couldn't hear it. I couldn't forgive her yet. "You love me? You carried on with Daniel while I trusted both of you? Do you understand what you've done?" She whimpered, collapsing into a chair. My chest ached, but I refused to let her see me break. I needed to be strong, for myself. For the first time in my life, I realized that family doesn't always protect you. Sometimes, family protects their own image, their own favorites, and the ones they see as fragile. I had to learn to protect myself. That night, I made a decision. I would gather evidence, confront my family, and reclaim the life that had been stolen from me. I would not be the quiet one anymore. I would not be invisible in the story of my own heartbreak. But just as I was feeling the faint stirrings of empowerment, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Another message. "Evelyn, you're getting closer, but be careful. Not everyone who seems to help you wants the truth to come out. Meet me at the river bridge, midnight, alone." My stomach turned. The web of deception was deeper than I imagined, and the night held secrets I had yet to uncover. I stared at the message, heart pounding, wondering who I could trust and fearing the betrayal that might await me next. I realized with a sinking certainty that the truth could destroy more than just my heart. It could destroy everything around me. The night air was sharp and cold as I made my way to the river bridge, my hands trembling around the edges of my coat. The city lights glimmered behind me, but their glow did nothing to warm the pit of dread in my chest. I had never felt so exposed, so vulnerable, yet driven by a need I couldn't ignore, the need to know the truth, no matter how devastating it might be. The message from the unknown number had led me here, alone, and I felt the weight of every betrayal pressing down on me. Daniel, my fiancé, who had destroyed my trust. Madeline, my sister, who had kept a secret that had upended my entire life. And my parents, who had chosen to shield her at my expense. And now, this new revelation loomed over me, promising answers, or perhaps another trap. I reached the bridge, the river flowing beneath, black and cold, mirroring my thoughts. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, broad, and familiar. It was Marcus, Daniel's friend, the one who had first shown me the messages, the one who had warned me that not everyone was on my side. "You came," he said softly, his eyes flicking toward the water. "I had to.
I whispered, my voice tight. I need to know what's really happening. I can't keep pretending I understand. Marcus nodded, and for a long moment we stood in silence, the river's current carrying our unspoken fears. Then he handed me a folder. This will explain things better than I ever could. I opened it with shaking hands, scanning the documents, photographs, and text screenshots inside. My heart pounded faster with each revelation. Daniel hadn't just been having an affair. He had been manipulating both Madeline and me, orchestrating moments to keep me unaware while ensuring that Madeline's pregnancy could be spun to the family's favor. But there was something even darker: financial motives, hidden debts, secret promises, and a pattern of emotional coercion I hadn't seen coming. I felt my stomach churn, the betrayal deepening. But then Marcus's voice pulled me back. "There's more," he said, hesitant. "Your family. They knew about this months ago. They orchestrated meetings, silenced conversations, even tried to make it look like you were imagining things when you confronted Daniel. They wanted to control the narrative, to protect Madeline, yes, but also the family reputation. You weren't the one being deceived. You were being controlled." My hands trembled as I realized the depth of the manipulation. Every argument, every moment I thought was private had been carefully observed and twisted against me. My parents weren't just defending Madeline. They had been playing a careful game, and I was the pawn. Rage, grief, and helplessness collided inside me. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to tear down every wall in that house and demand justice. But Marcus's next words silenced me. "There's someone else involved." My blood ran cold. "Who?" I demanded. Marcus looked around nervously. "Your sister isn't acting alone. Daniel isn't acting alone. Your family, they have an ally, someone who's been feeding them information, making sure you're always one step behind. You need to be careful, Evelyn. Not everyone you think is helping you is on your side." The world felt like it was tilting beneath me. I realized that the betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was systematic. It was calculated, planned, and meant to humiliate me completely. I felt my stomach churn, suffocated by anger and despair. I wanted to run, to escape, to find some place where I could cry without fear of being watched or judged. But something inside me, a spark I hadn't felt in months, flared up. I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. I would confront, expose, and reclaim what was mine. Marcus leaned closer. "Tomorrow, you confront them all, but do it carefully. Record conversations if you can. Prepare for resistance. And remember, Madeline may act scared, vulnerable, innocent, but she's part of this. Don't underestimate her." I nodded, swallowing hard, steeling myself for what lay ahead. The night stretched on as we strategized, the cold wind whipping around us, yet I felt a strange clarity. For the first time since discovering the betrayal, I felt a sense of control, a plan, a direction. But the sense of empowerment was short-lived. That night, as I returned home, I found a note slipped under my bedroom door. My hands shook as I read it. "Stop digging, Evelyn. You don't know who you're messing with. Leave this alone or there will be consequences." My heart raced, fear mingling with determination. Someone was watching, threatening me, trying to silence me. The web of lies had more threads than I imagined, and I had just touched one that someone powerful didn't want exposed. The next few days were a whirlwind. I felt like I was navigating a storm with no shelter in sight. Every message, every glance, every whispered conversation seemed to carry another layer of deceit. I realized that the only person I could truly rely on was myself. I spent hours going through the documents Marcus had given me, piecing together the timeline of lies, manipulations, and secret meetings. I saw how Daniel had carefully woven a web to entangle Madeline while keeping me oblivious, how my parents had ignored my pain to maintain an illusion of family harmony, and how Madeline had played the role of the innocent victim to hide her own choices. It was brutal, and yet, amid the heartbreak, I felt a spark, a glimmer of power returning to me. For the first time since the betrayal, I felt like I had control. I decided it was time for the confrontation that could no longer be postponed. I chose a neutral ground, a quiet cafe, where we could talk without interruptions. Marcus accompanied me, giving me silent support, but I knew that the strength I needed had to come from within. I arrived first, my hands clammy, my heart racing. I watched as Daniel entered, his face pale, guilt evident in every movement. Behind him, my parents appeared, stiff and formal, and finally, Madeline, trembling, her usual coquettish confidence replaced with fear. I took a deep breath, feeling my pulse steady as I stepped forward. "We need to talk," I began, my voice calm but firm. "Everything ends here. No more lies, no more hiding. We're confronting the truth." Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. My mother's lips tightened, my father's jaw clenched, and Madeline avoided my gaze. I laid out everything I had learned: the messages, the photos, the manipulations, the financial motives, the hidden conversations. I spoke slowly, carefully, so that no one could twist my words. I felt the power of my voice returning with each revelation. The cafe was silent, the tension so thick I could almost touch it. Daniel tried to interject, to apologize, to explain away his actions, but I held my hand up. "No, I don't want your explanations. I want accountability. I want acknowledgement of the betrayal, and I want to know why my family chose to protect the people who hurt me instead of standing by me." My mother's eyes glistened, but there was no apology there. My father's hands trembled, and Madeline fidgeted nervously. "Evelyn, we were trying to protect Madeline. She's young, and..." I cut him off. "And what about me? Am I not your child too? Your daughter? Does my pain not matter because I'm strong enough to bear it?" Madeline finally looked at me, her voice quivering. "Eve, I was scared. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't want to ruin your life." "But you did," I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. "You ruined everything. And now you expect me to forgive you because you were scared?" Silence fell. Daniel's head dropped, and I could see the guilt written in every line of his face. I realized that this confrontation, as painful as it was, had shifted something. I was no longer the betrayed, the victim. I was the one controlling the narrative now. I continued. "I've spent days piecing together every secret, every lie. I know what's been happening behind my back, and I will not allow it to continue. Daniel, you are no longer part of my life. Madeline, I will set boundaries. I cannot allow this betrayal to continue to define me. And to my parents, I love you, but I will no longer allow your favoritism to dictate my worth." My parents exchanged a long, uncomfortable look, and I felt a quiet victory. I had voiced what had been buried inside me for weeks. I had claimed my truth. But then, as I was leaving the cafe, my phone buzzed again, another unknown number. I froze. The message read, "You think you have control, but not everyone is on your side. Be careful. The next choice you make will determine everything." My heart skipped a beat, fear rising again. Yet this time, it was different. I wasn't paralyzed by it. I had survived the betrayals, uncovered the truths, and confronted the people who had hurt me. I had the knowledge, the power, and the clarity to make the next choice. I realized that life would continue to throw challenges at me, but I would no longer be passive. I had boundaries now, clarity of mind, and a sense of self-worth that could not be shaken. Over the next weeks, I took deliberate steps to reclaim my life. I blocked Daniel's number, unfollowed him on all social media, and refused to answer any attempts at communication. I spoke with my sister, setting firm boundaries, making it clear that while I loved her, our relationship would never return to what it once was until she took responsibility for her choices. I started therapy, seeking to heal from the emotional wounds, to rebuild trust in myself and in others, and to ensure that I would never again be silenced or made invisible. My parents, for the first time, saw that their actions had consequences. Our family dynamic shifted. They could no longer control me, and I refused to allow their favoritism to dictate my sense of self-worth. And slowly, with time, I began to feel lighter. The ache of betrayal remained, but it was no longer a weight pressing me into despair. I had reclaimed my narrative. I had found power in truth and clarity in confrontation. One evening, sitting on my balcony overlooking the city lights, I realized something profound. Life had taken away what I thought I wanted: trust, love, family harmony. But in its place, it had given me something far more important: resilience, self-awareness, and the knowledge that I could survive even the deepest betrayals. I knew I would never forget Daniel, Madeline, or the emotional storms my family had subjected me to. But I also knew that I was no longer defined by them. I had boundaries, I had clarity, I had strength, and most importantly, I had myself. That night, as the wind whispered through the city streets, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in months. I was free not just from the people who had betrayed me, but from the chains of silence, fear, and emotional manipulation. I realized that betrayal, as painful as it is, can be a catalyst for growth. It can force you to recognize your own worth, to set boundaries, and to reclaim control over your life. I had survived the storm, and now I was ready to live on my own terms. As I reflected on everything, I couldn't help but wonder about the countless others who had faced similar betrayals, who had been silenced, manipulated, and hurt by the people they trusted most. To anyone listening, anyone watching this, I want you to know your voice matters, your pain matters, and your life is yours to reclaim, no matter how deep the wounds inflicted by others. Betrayal can leave scars, but it can also illuminate the strength within you never knew existed. And with that thought, I finally allowed myself to breathe deeply, to release the last remnants of fear, and to step into a life defined not by betrayal, but by my own courage, resilience, and unwavering sense of self. Life moves on, but so do we. And in moving forward, we find the power to heal, to grow, and to never allow anyone to dim the light within us again.